Heidenström, thank you so much for taking some time out to speak to us today at Heart of Football. And I can see your T-shirt, which is the perfect note to start on. 25 years ago, you entered so many people's lives as a legend of Championship Manager. I know you've had to answer questions about this probably many times over, but I must ask you, how did you first become aware of your fame on Championship Manager?
It happened. First of all, it is one of the coolest, best thing that happened in my football life. I'm of course a father of children who plays football. I'm a football fan. I'm a player. But it was actually 1 year after I put my boots away and started working, and it was a man in my village. He has never spoken to me. He passed me, and then he suddenly said, I bought you last week. You were very good, and I sold you again, but now I bought you again. And I said, what? Because I couldn't. And he said, do you know about the game? And I said, no, tell me about it. So I thought he was probably the only man in Norway playing this. But then it started to go very, very rapidly, because I was then becoming a marketing boss of a very good football club here in Norway called Vålerenga. And I met a lot of celebrities in Oslo, our capital. And actually the first big, I think it's called banquet, with a lot of A and B celebrities. I sat down and I was a bit starstruck of all these TV celebrities. And I presented me to the one over the table, and he said, are you that Bjørn Heidenstrøm? And I said, what do you mean I'm that? Yeah, I played this game, he said, Championship Manager. And I said, oh yeah, I mean, you're my legend. So it actually, that kind of responses and fun and enjoyment has for all these years just been there. So I think it's every 4 months on Twitter I said I owe like 100 beers to the programmer who fixed me into this game. So it's been I've been great fun.
I mean, do you think you will ever get tired of this tag as being a Championship Manager legend? What about your actual, I mean, is it something that you love, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 100% fun, enjoyment. I make new friends about it, and it's a big laugh. And of course, I have friends who become really superstars, like Ronnie Johnson, Manchester United. He won the treble with them, where he won the champions, and when he have a beer, and I said, yeah, you won that, but have you seen my statistic in Championship Manager? So I can kind of use it, in a pub environment or with mates and everything. So yeah, and maybe the most important thing is that I've done a couple of expeditions where I have used football as kind of the glue, and it's fantastic what can happen in strange, faraway countries if you just say football, Championship Manager, and I'm in that game. I mean, you get friends in very strange places, which is important when you travel alone and dirty on a bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah, Bjørn, you mentioned those trips. Actually, I wouldn't mind asking you about that next, because I've read 1 or 2 interviews. I think Dave Black did an interview with you about 5 years ago, which was the first one I saw, and he mentioned these trips that you took. Could you explain to us briefly what the main motivation was? And as I understand, the organisation, The Shirt, was a charity that you were sort of raising awareness and funds for. Tell us how that came about and what came of that.
Yeah, I still think it's interesting. I think also I would like to do it again. I've done it 3 times now, 3 expeditions. It started with that I see football as the most fantastic friend maker in the world. because I'm no celebrity in Norway, but saying just a couple of football names, you can suddenly see in a pub that, okay, I got friends. And then I saw the great power when I work as this marketing man in a big football club called Vålerenga, and we did a lot with anti-racism, and we actually we stopped racism in parts of Norway. It was racism. We went in and we stopped it because of football and the power of football. We used our stars. We used our, and then our organization came to me in 2008. It's UNHCR, and that's the biggest UN organization. It's refugees, and I said we have 43 million refugees on the run, and we actually need people to speak about it, because in 2008 it was we didn't speak about it, and it was a big problem. And they already said that they will come over the oceans. People will drown, will die. And I said, well, I'm planning an expedition, so let's see what I can think about. And then I sat home and thought, the strongest thing for example, you, Andrew, in football is, of course, the team you support. And then you, of course, if you have a team you support, you have some teams that you kind of hate, or we pretend that we hate. Until the day you meet those supporters in a pub, and you become aware of that. Hey, I'm a part of the football family. We're all together. We are friends. So I wanted to use that, and I said, what if I can take my Liverpool shirt, get it signed by players, and see if I can sew that together with a Manchester United shirt. Let's see if they two teams can agree that we need to help 43 million who are refugees. So then I knew with my background that I need to have some drama. So I said, okay, I'm cycling alone from Norway to the World Cup in South Africa 2010. I'm going to get signed football shirts from supporters, fans, trainers, coaches, whoever, with the mission of making this enormous shirt. So started to cycle. I'm not a cyclist, but I started to cycle, and I was seeing that the first big headline, the whole paper was the headline was "Mental Patient on Two Wheels." That was about that was about my expedition. And but going into Finland, the big papers came and said, hey, we want to make a piece on this. Who are you? What are you doing it? So they made an article about 43 million. And it was like, yeah, the UN was like, hey, the first article went into Russia. The same thing happened. And to make the very, very long story short, I arrived approximately 1 week before the World Cup. It was 621 collected signed shirt, and that was from guys like you and me, Andrew, and from a bit more famous players like the whole Barcelona, the Manchester United, the Liverpool, and big football fans like Iron Maiden, the group, metal group. West Ham fans are there. so yeah, and at the end, the UN, I was really happy, because that trip, campaign, expedition made national headlines in 85 countries because of football and the football friendship. So it was a total boost of communication about 43 million refugees with the football fans around it. So yeah, enormous success there. I came home bankrupt because I've used all my money, but but also with my bags full of stories. So I after a year of holding speeches, I was up and going again, and I did it 3 more times, and planning actually a new one now, if my wife Marianne allows me. Yeah.
Bjorn, that's quite some epic journey in many senses you've just described. And my favourite part is you say you were bankrupt but had a bag full of stories. I mean, that's just my favourite part. Speaking of those memories that you have, Bjorn, if we could go back to your actual playing career as well. I mean, of course, the key point that fascinates a lot of people is how on earth you came to play for Leyton Orient. Now, as I understand, you took part in a 1000th game for Peter Shilton. But how did that come about in the first place? And what happened whilst you were at Leyton Orient? And why did you not stay longer?
Yeah, good questions. It started with on my CV, kind of football CV, it stands national youth player, national boy youth, and so doing well is a good talent, good player who comes to the top in Norway, but quite early realized that Liverpool's not going to call me, so I start very early to look at marketing communication jobs. But what happens is that 4 or 5 years before that Peter Shilton Legend 1000 game, I was in Cambridge, was under training, and their manager Tommy Taylor liked me. Tommy Taylor gets to Leyton Orient, and their promoter owner Barry Hearn, he's a marketing brain, so he looks at Peter Shilton has 900 something games, and he knows that, okay, if we buy Peter Shilton, he gets his 1000 game here in Leyton Orient, Sky Channel's going to come, so and that is what happens. But one in the midfield, don't know who, get hurt, and then Tommy Taylor says, hey, 5 years ago, I was managing Cambridge, a Norwegian guy was on training. He was good. Let's see if we can rent in for this one game. So Tommy Taylor calls me, and I think when I pick up the phone, and he says what he says, Tommy Taylor, manager, playing for Peter Shilton, 1000 guy, can you do it? I actually 100% believe it's a drunken friend who does this prank call on me. So I said, very nice, Mr. Tommy Taylor. I need to call you back. What's your number? Just to see if it's a British telephone number. And then I said, okay, it could be true. So basically, Mr. Taylor asked me how much would I need to play this game. And I reply with, how much do I have to pay you? Because I really, really wants to play this game with one of my legends, Peter Shilton. So, well, I come over, play this game, it goes well, and he asks, can I play 3 more? I have then 100% marketing job in Norway, calls my boss, he's also my friend, to say, hey, having a brilliant time in London with Leyton Orient, can I play 3 more games? So did that. So actually the deal was to just play that one game. And then it was a good one. And as a bonus there, Andrew, I have to tell you about when those English really made a practical joke that I think they still remember and talks about in Leyton Orient, because the 3rd game is away against Swansea. And I fell asleep on the bus. And before you go over to Wales, there is this ordinary toll post, toll with to pay like £1.
Yeah.
But they are looking at the Norwegian, as me, saying, okay, we can do something with that. He's sleeping. So they pull the bus on the shoulder before this toll, and everybody's yelling when I'm like awake, and the manager, the whole bus is like, where's your fucking passport? Get your fucking passport. And I said, what was happening? Well, it's the border here to Wales, and all we are English, so we have a deal. Wales, England has a deal, but you are Norwegian, so where is your passport? And you have to hurry up because we're gonna have a dinner, blah 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 blah. So I'm so stressed, and I luckily have my passport. So I run out of the bus and I run 100 meters like toward this lady who are expecting £1. I come and say, hey, I'm from Norway. This is my passport. All the others are from England. So can you please stamp that passport? She starts to laugh, of course. And then I turn slowly around and I see like 45 English in the bus with that international sign laughing their heads off. And that was I was there for 3 games. That's probably 3 weeks. And the last day when I was saying goodbye to everybody, the lady who was cleaning the floor, everybody was like, hi, good to have you here. Hope to see you again. And the lady who was doing the floor, she said, excuse me, Mr. Heidenström. And I said, yes, love. You got your passport, sir? So see,
even the cleaning ladies were in on the
everybody
joke.
has heard about that. Yeah, that
Oh,
was me in
fantastic.
Leyton Orient.
Oh, blimey. Well, okay. As a player, Bjorn, then you had a great time at Leyton Orient. But in the game itself, I mean, again, the statistics that were on your profile were quite spectacular. I remember being manager myself of Leyton Orient many times, and it was basically because there was you and Alex Inglethorpe were in the game, and that was the best midfield. It was wonderful. But your stats in particular, the ones that I find most interesting, you had 20 for passing, 19 for shooting, but then you also had 18 for tackling and 17 for aggression. Now that tells me, I'm not sure which character of player you were. Could you tell us, honestly, were you a more creative midfielder or were you a brute enforcer in defence? What type of player actually were you?
I was, Andrew, a blend between Pelé and Maradona.
Oh, well, there we go.
No, I was not. And no, those numbers, I'm so sorry to say that, but the numbers are maybe a bit wrong. I was actually, I was what you would call, I think you have the expression, a midfield terrier. This midfielder full of energy who does all the runs offensively and defensively, and are always want to do something. I was a good tackler, good to winning the ball.
Mm-hmm.
My shooting was not good. My shooting was not 19. I think my passes was good up there. I can't rate them because I played on Norwegian, here in Norway. But I guess if you placed me as a 19 years old in England, maybe I would play the English first division, not the Premier League, no, but the first division, and I would probably play. If I did well, I would play in the midfield as in that role. But I didn't score any. I did, like, as a midfielder, 2-3 goals every season. Yeah, but I was basically the central midfielder. Very often the captain. Very often full of energy and tackle and yeah. So that was me. I have to ask you: is it a number on the speed, like speed as a player? Does that have a number in Championship Manager?
Yes, you had. It was down as 16 for pace, so pretty speedy. Would you say speed? The pace 16 was accurate?
No, that's
very quick answer.
No, I think that's the most wrong number there. But yeah, I would raise, as I said, the passes, the tackling, the heading and everything. But I think that's the reason why I didn't take it to the next level, because I did not have the speed. So that was actually my first meeting with. Do you remember Ronnie Johnson, Manchester United?
It's Ronnie Johnson, of course. Yeah.
He has a absolutely like bolt Jamaican's speed. So I remember I also played sometimes in the as a mid back when we in some games, and the manager said they have a new striker because Ronny Johnson started his career as a striker. And I asked, as always, is he fast? He said, no, really slow, like you, Bjørn. And then the first ball in the channel behind me, I had like 20 meters on Ronny Johnson, and he went like whoosh behind me. So that was the level when it comes to speed.
Well, that's reassuring to know, Bjørn, because when I in my school playing career, I was a centre back and centre midfielder as well, at times, and I also had very limited pace. So quality doesn't need pace. We can both agree. I think that's absolutely fine. Bjørn, I must ask you about another Championship manager legend that everybody knows, Tommy Svindal Larsen. Now, as I understand, you played alongside him. Could you tell us? You mentioned about your statistics, and you were very honest and said perhaps some of the statistics weren't quite as accurate. But would you say Tommy Svindal Larsen's statistics were accurate? How good was he, and what was it like playing with him?
He was. I was playing for Old Grenland. He came in very, very young, and he was absolutely a miracle on everything. He came in too young, and we thought, okay, he's too young, but he's like, okay, he's good enough. And then his technique was, well, the best I've seen live. His passing and his magic balance and to do the right decision in every moment was just what's astonishing. And I remember asking Tommy, like in the first half, you get the ball, you have your back to the other way, you have 3 people around you, and it's something like abracadabra, whoosh whoosh happened. Can you explain it? And he just said, no, I can't. He said, but what kind of technique we're doing? He said, I don't know. And that was his story. He was just this fantastic talent with the technique and the balance. His passing very, very good. And he was kind of the player who was not fast on 100 meter or on 40 meter, but he was like deadly fast on 3 meters. He was like that, the first 3 meters. Yeah. So he came out with the ball of every situation, and he was really, really deserved to be a professional in Germany. And I will. You know how it is, Andrew. When we meet at pub, you sometimes say, "What if he was discovered in England like 5 years before? What if Real Madrid did to Tommy what they did to Ødegaard and bought him as a 15 years old? What if? Because he absolutely had that talent to play for every team. So he deserves every stats. I don't know if his shooting is deadly, but all the other stats, if it's really, really high, he deserves that. And a really fun man to meet and be around. He's a good fellow.
Well, 2 brilliant teammates. I always have both of you in my sights, and that is the absolute gospel truth, I promise.
All right. I'll tell him that. I've also told him that he has to go and make a Twitter account and be on social media, because his life will be even more happier. Because I see all this who talks about Tommy Svindal Larsen. That's what I do. I think I like one day every year has a bad day, and then I just Google myself in English, and somebody write, he's a legend, and I go, yeah, I am, thank you, and then I'm happy again. So I'm really, really happy for Championship manager, that's for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Andrew. That was a really, really fun talking to you.
Oh, Bjørn, thank you. Absolute pleasure. I mean, I really appreciate how open you are and how much you've got to say, because the one concern I had when I contacted you originally was that you might be a little God, not another Championship Manager interview, and I was hoping to broaden it out to what else you've done since then, because what basically we've tried to do on our website, we're only a small website, but we're building it up, is we love Championship Manager, but what happened to the real people that we became legends? And I couldn't ask for any more, Bjorn. Honestly, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was good. Good one. Well, remember, if you can, to when it's something about Russia and nature when you're out there, please remember to now and then to tag me or something, so I can see where you are in Russian nature.
Yes, absolutely. I will do.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Bjorn, thanks so much. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Well, Bjorn, speaking of statistics, we know how popular Championship Manager and Football Manager games have become, but in a broader sense, some people would call obsession with numbers and statistics and data analysis in the modern game. Do you think this is just a natural progression of football, or do you think it's becoming too obsessive and people are losing sight of just watching the game and understanding it better?
I like both aspects. The biggest reason for basically us Norwegians to love stats is that the only time Norway has been on the FIFA map was around 94, where we had Egil Drillo Olsen as a manager. We were up there. We were ranked number 4 or 5 because he used stats. He used the statistics to. I don't know the name of this baseball movie with Brad Pitt, but it's kind of famous because it just
Moneyball.
Yeah, that one.
Moneyball, yeah.
So if you take Moneyball into Egil Drillo Olsen's head, you get that period of Norway where he was just cynical about facts, and that's facts when it comes to. Well, the most cynical is that if we, Norway, had 7 passes, he said, we didn't do it. He said that after 7 passes, you can just give the ball to to the opposite side because the stats says that blah, 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 blah. And then it started then with Stig Inge Bjørneby being the left back. We had Jostein Flo playing for Sheffield United as the right flank. And then we had that terrible long ball that we throw. Because the stats show that if you do that pass up to their box, the chances of scoring goals is. So it was stats. And the latest one that I really, really like, because I train before my expedition and I train in my life, and I always speak about when Mr. Olsen, that manager, also used stats to get the head of a football player ready for information. And by that, I mean every football player, when we have the football shoes on, we are a bit stupid. And we also think, all of us, that we are a bit Maradona, Pelé, George Best. So he asked all the players there in 94, all the players on the national team, do you have the same stamina as the Italian national team? And the Norwegian football player said, yes, we have. Of course, yes, we have. And said, yeah, that's good, because you see, they are rated as the best stamina in Europe. So, but let's use some stats. So he said, basically, let's test that. Let's check if what you say are right. So then they did that. And the test showed that, no, the Italian was far better when it comes to oxygen and all that. But then the Norwegian football players said, okay, we don't have that stamina, but we run as much as them during a game. And then Drillo said, let's look at the stats. So he measured how long a Norwegian midfielder was running and compared it with the Italians. And then he back said, you are wrong again. The Italians. So when it comes also to training, and all, yeah, I really like stats if you use it the right way, of course, and that's the most important sentence, I think, if you use it the right way.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with that, to be honest, because it's silly to ignore some analysis if it's used correctly. So, you mentioned the success in the rankings that Egil Olsen oversaw in the early 90s. What about the modern day Norwegian side? Because I mean, there are some genuine global superstars, or at least potential superstars, to represent the Norwegian national side. I mean, Erling Haaland. I apologise if my pronunciation is off, but
no, that's good.
Erling Haaland,
very good.
Erling Haaland stands out, but Martin Odegaard, I remember when he signed for Real Madrid as a 15-year-old, I believe it was, and then for a few years people said, well, his career may be destroyed because it's too much too soon, but he seems to be developing a lot more in the last few years. Do you think there's a reason why this exact generation has not qualified for the World Cup or achieved more? Or do you believe it's just a case of being patient and waiting for them to become more proficient at reaching major tournaments?
Very good questions, and I believe in the last one, and I hope for that, because if you look at if you start with Erling Braut Haaland, you moved him from the farmland of Norway called Bryne, and then he was a superstar like the day after, and that and that is very, very seldom. But if you look at Martin Ødegaard, he has the natural progression, I think, and that of course when he was bought as a teenager there to Real Madrid, everybody knew that no, it's not going to happen. And then they rented him out, but they saw the talent, and it's basically the last 2 years that you see in that kind of flower going up, and he's doing well now in Arsenal. He's found the right club, he's found his role, and he's now starting to be that super mature player. So for me, what I think and I hope for is that is the next 3 years from today that he can be one of the really, really good Europe. And the same with Haaland. He is also there now, but he's already a superstar. And I have to say, the manager Ståle Solbakken did very, very great. He is the best we have now, and he is really, really good, really, really good. I don't know why he didn't do it he was in Köln and he was in Wolverhampton and didn't do it well, but all the other years in FC Copenhagen he's been brilliant. So I have fingers crossed for this generation, and we have to speak again in basically 1 year from now, because I hope we're not that team that, well, it didn't happen. So I'm hoping for the next 2 years, basically.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting to see how it develops. I'm looking forward to it. Bjørn, one last thing I would love to touch on, and again, about the future looking forward. You've mentioned before on some of your social media accounts that you were writing books or planning to write books. What projects do you have to release books, for what purpose, and what other plans do you have, whether it's more expeditions or journeys? What does the future hold for Bjørn Heidenstrøm?
It's threefolded. My book started because I'm a lot in nature. I use nature for everything, for my training, for my social life with my kids, my family, and my first 3 books was then what I will call the hiking, kayak, ski books. So I take one destination and I work with that destination for a year, and then I release the book. And it has been good with 3 books now. And then I started to look at a book that I think you would like, because I started to work with 2 books now, working with them. One is about motivation. You know that everybody's speaking about motivation, and we always have the one on the stage saying. But I'm working on a book which has the long now. I read 100 books about motivation, and this is the summation. So I'm basically reading 100 books now, but I also been very interested in that topic since I was like 13, 14 years old. So that is the one book. But the book that Andrew Flint's going to like is a book that I'm going to call basically professional. So I am this not known as at all ex-professional in Norway with my 3 games for Leyton Orient, but I have on my calling on my cell phone, I have approximately 40 guys who has been very good professionals. So it's from Ronny Johnsen, Manchester United, it's Liverpool, it's Bohinen, it's all over, and I'm gonna ask them questions about, you know, the one that you and me, Andrew, had when we were 7, 8 years old, which is basically the first one is, how can I become a professional? So that's perfect question. And then how do you become, and what should we do? How should we train? How should we eat? How should we think? So I've started with that project, and I hope that book can be 2 things. One, when I meet Ronny, one is for the father in the house, and that is, Ronny, take us back to the time with Sir Alex, you know, those games. Tell me about Cantona, tell me about gigs, tell me about. So that's for the father, mother, going back the history lane. But the other part of the conversation is that mom and dad, they have a son or a daughter who are thinking about, I want to be a professional. So tell them now, how should they do that? And with all kind of, I also have, since I'm really, really interested in football, I'm going to go deep into some, do you say nerd? Nerd, is that, you know, very, very deep into?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess sometimes it's almost used in a positive sense nowadays, but yeah.
So for example, as a midfielder, I think I was 28 the first time I saw a player who said, Bjørn, you're never looking over your shoulder. And I said, what do you mean by that? So it's too late in my career when he said, well, here's a video of Zidane. So he was he's looking over his shoulder every second. So he went like, he was playing on the midfield like this. And you are looking over your shoulder like 1 time every 50 minutes. So when you get the ball, you don't know what's behind you. And I said, well, you're basically right. So that's like 1 800 like to talk about in the book, all these little details. So that's the book. And then I'm planning expedition, my 4th one, because I think the pandemic is over soon now. I hope so. And then I can do that again, and hopefully, fingers crossed. And this time I'm going to use my football friends again. I'm going to row from Norway to London is the plan. So I'd run along the side, and I'm going to put the highlight on pollution in ocean. I work a lot with pollution in ocean, so every day stop and I also do some research and try to get new things on the table, hopefully in a funny way, and hopefully with the new football friends.
Bjørn, that sounds like the most exciting journey. It's as if you're never going to stop, and I love this. I mean, you said earlier, you know, when we were setting up the call that I'm 100 years old. I'm not so good with the technology, but I get the sense that you don't need technology. You've got all the things that you need: your football family, your expeditions, the outdoors. It sounds refreshing. Bjørn, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this, and it's been a fascinating insight into well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You were a childhood hero of mine, even though I had no idea about you. And you won me many trophies, so I appreciate that. But it just goes to show connections can lead from one thing to the next, and suddenly you're campaigning, writing books, and getting everything out of life. So it's just a wonderful story. Bjørn, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can speak to you soon and see how your projects are going.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anytime, Andrew. And